Welcome to our final week of the January wish list episode series. Today, we're going to be tackling the Sea Raiders of Orgoth. My name is Ryan. I used to be good at Warmachine. Welcome to Spell Rack. My lords, my ladies, and everyone else, I bring you the champion of Orgoth, the pillaging heart of Sea Raiders, the protector of Italian virginity, the undefeated champion of the WTC, the lion that does not concern himself with a second list, the winner of the first ever Lock and Load Invitational, and my personal nemesis, Dan Riker. Dan, how are you?
Wow, what an intro. It's bonkers. Thank you very much. I'm doing great. I'm really excited to talk about a faction that I played way too many games of.
Okay, a faction or a caster?
What's the difference? It's all
Okay.
the same.
Well, Dan, thanks for joining me. Before we get into individual specific casters and everything, how do you feel overall about the changes that SFG has proposed? We have reduced lethality and the lowering of mats and the removal of the spell racks.
A very interesting thing because I think it is widely accepted that Sea Raiders have one of the best racks in the game, having access to very Swiss Army like tools of Silence of Death, Invaluable Resolve, Carnage, and Windstorm. But with that going away, I am exceptionally curious to see where these spells go. I think they are going to be very big tools for next year. Our threat ranges are not very good as a whole. So if lethality is going to be reduced, I am very curious if the survivability of this faction having short threat ranges is going to be balanced out.
Dan, so it sounds like your point with losing the rack, it sounds like it might hit Sea Raiders a little bit harder than other factions because you guys have such a substantial spell list that you rely on. And so maybe as we kind of get into this whole dialogue about the faction, you guys have been sort of a 50% win rate faction, and it feels like because the rack was so paramount to your lists, maybe Orgoth might actually need a little bit of a buff on the overall.
Yeah, I would agree to that, definitely.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, let's jump into the faction. We'll start with your
Top
entire
of the list.
faction. Yep. Horus. Okay, so how does he need to be adjusted? Because obviously he needs a notch down.
Obvious, but it's maybe a bit of a red flag here or there.
Okay, well,
So,
maybe it's actually not that he needs a notch down. Maybe it's really a leveling of the other casters up to where he is, right?
yes,
And maybe
I
that's
would
the
agree with
right
that.
way to look at it. Okay.
So one of the things that I think is tilting about Harusk in general, honestly, one of the big things is the rack. Being able to have a very solid kit. Abattoir, it really isn't used that much. Thunderstrike, as you get more proficient with the caster, you find more and more angles to really abuse this spell. And then Vanish is kind of like a nice general spell. But the two rack, based on whatever matchup you're playing against, it always puts you in an almost advantageous position. But at the very least, it sets you up to be a 50-50.
Yeah.
And in a game where there are so many matchups and so many things going on, being able to force a 50-50 is an incredible superpower. Also, with the feat, looking at the survivability of your army with the
Yeah.
+3 armor and cannot be knocked down. Now, when we're talking about changes, I think that we found out from Lock and Load when they were commentating on one of my games in the Invitational
Mm.
that he is losing Fate Blessed. And this is going to
Okay.
Oriax, which we can talk about a little bit later. Now, I do think that this change will have a huge impact on the caster because of the sort of rock playstyle that he has, where I'm going to get alpha and then I'm going to counterpunch and try and cripple you, or at least get up high on scenario.
Yeah.
Now, Sea Raiders do not have a plentiful amount of attacks in comparison to other factions. So these rerolls became extremely crucial, as we saw in the finals, where going in for an assassination, I had access to 6 rerolls.
Okay.
Now, when we're speaking on changes, what I would like to see for him is keep maybe one of the big spells in Windstorm or Carnage. I think would be really big, just because he does nothing for threat range outside of maybe Thunderstriking something backwards.
Yeah.
Carnage, because he lost Fate Bless, he needs the accuracy for his troops, and it allows him to be still up in the mix. Or Windstorm, where he can kind of be his own little delivery system.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And just to kind of reiterate, after having thought about asking initially, how would you nerf him? My second point of actually bringing up the rest of the casters in your faction, I think that's the right way to think about it. So
Yeah.
him losing Fate Blessed is a nerf. And then you
Mhm.
want to round him out with a proper spell list. And then the work
Yeah.
we need to do in the faction is bring everybody else up.
Yep. I think obviously I'm gonna kind of gush about this just because I played him so much. I think it was the center of the Venn diagram where he had access to so many spells, and the spells that he had access to only pushed his concept even harder. So
Yeah,
like
fair.
when you had that Mortal Fear IR feat unit of execrators, like that wasn't okay. Like let's be
Yeah,
honest here.
fair. Okay, Kishtar.
Yeah, so Kishtar is actually a extremely interesting caster. She has a lot of really unique tools in the faction. Unfortunately, you're going to see a very common theme with the rest of the casters where they want to do something or they have access to do something very cool, but their defensive stats and their defensive tech just leaves them out in the open to die,
Okay.
unfortunately. And with a 15-15, she's only control range 12, and she wants to throw her range 10 sick weapons, but
Yeah.
again, you're real close to people for those power 13s. One of the biggest downsides to the faction currently is the Tyrant. I think the Tyrant is exceptionally overcosted for what it does, and Kishtar makes these guys sing.
Gotcha.
Her
Okay.
her feet, Fire Group, Swift Hunter, Repo 3 on the feet, all really amazing stuff, but unfortunately, it's only really her battle group. So it makes it a really awkward moment where she's control range 12. We want to play a gun line, but this is a very aggressive scenario packet to sit back and back up after you shoot. Typically, you're going to leave yourself with a huge scenario disadvantage. And then you just have all these grinding concepts that are kind of opposite to each other. She really didn't have any defensive tech. So that's something that I would like to see. Surefoot is an amazing spell. Unfortunately, we have some of the lowest defensive stats in the game,
Yeah.
with sitting around 12, 13, some 11. So to bump those up to now, this is where I'm going to be exceptionally curious going into next year is whether that 14 or 15 on a unit will make a bigger impact. Or if we're going to see a little bit more of the same. Overall, I think she is untapped potential because her feat is exceptionally powerful.
Yeah.
And my wish list would just be probably some sort of defensive tech, either maybe like give her stealth. I mean, she has prowl, but maybe just
Yeah.
give her straight stealth, or just something along the lines to keep her alive.
Well, and then, like you said, we'll get to it later, but the tyrants they're just so expensive.
So,
And give her a little bit of a defensive tech off the tyrants appropriately, and then
mhm,
suddenly she becomes viable.
right,
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, how about Auriax? So we know he gains Fate Blessed, right?
very big deal.
Okay.
So Oriax he's right there. He's so close. There's so many good things that are going along with him. I think that realistically, my biggest suggestion that I've always made for Oriax is that if he could just collect friendly souls,
Yeah.
he is a tournament viable caster overnight, the way he is worded right now.
Okay.
He can fuel jacks. He's our he's one of our only threat extensions, and a really amazing spell list when you look at everything. He has an armor buff, icy grip, gives us Pathfinder, which we don't have a lot of. It is a bit of a problem in the faction. Darkfrost is an amazing spell, and it's just all of these things, and it would be perfectly fine. Once again, as I mentioned with Kishtar, he's a 15-15 who wants to cast an expensive spell and sit in the middle of the table.
Yeah.
Very scary to be that, but it would be fine if he could just collect friendly souls, because then you open the possibilities up where I can bring the single wound infantry, I can bring a whole bunch of different things that are trading, and in the meantime, my counterpunch is in like a different vector.
Mm-hmm.
Where now it's a soul counterpunch where I get souped up because all of my guys are dying, that kind of tit for tat playstyle. But with the way that it's worded right now, worst thing in the world in the game right now is to be living. So a lot of people just aren't bringing it. So when he walks to the table, you're taking a huge risk, whether your opponent has souls or not, to just
Yeah.
function. So when we move over to his feet, Howl of the Abyss, he has a one time I get to gain souls, which is nice because he does have a little bit of control over how and when he uses those souls. They don't automatically turn into focus.
Yep.
But unfortunately, it also says that the melee weapons of cohorts gain Shadowbind. I think that'd be really interesting if A, collect friendly souls, and B, just change it to weapons because it's
Mm,
already limited to cohort models.
yep.
It's a feat. It's supposed to be kind of broken, and if you could just change that to weapons, gain Shadowbind, I think that would be exceptional.
Okay, those make sense. My only thought on him is in a meta where mats and rats come down, specifically mats in this case, having
Mhm.
Starcrossed becomes a fairly powerful ability, right?
Correct.
Being able to stack defense is not
Mhm.
something that is very commonly seen in this game. And if you, layman's math, right? If you count Starcross as +2 defense, you get actually, I know your stuff is only defense 12 and 13, but being an army of defense 14 and 15 starts to
Right.
become pretty good. But I see
If
where
we
he
took
still
the
needs some efficiencies.
the example that we just had with Kishtar, where like maybe one unit with +2 def might be impactful. An entire army of +2 def should by then be
Yeah,
a big deal. Then so with that in mind too, I know that we have rocks, but they are still a little fragile. But we have access to blimps, Sky Raiders and Sky Bombers, and they're all Def 13. So now if we have Def 13 plus Starcross and that many boxes, we're
yeah.
starting to develop a concept. Exactly.
Okay, the one and only Orgoth model that I've ever painted, I loved
That
painting
is
him, but
so this is another guy. It's a very common theme of Orgoth casters. They're just right there, but they're missing that one identifying thing. So Butcher was in my opinion, he was kind of the joke of the faction,
yeah,
where he could be a serious joke. Don't get me wrong, you could totally win games with him, but we have this amazing rack with Carnage and Windstorm, and he just can't cast it as you are,
yep,
highlighting the very special rule right there. I feel like this was done to fulfill like a flavor quota on the
sure.
caster, just because I'm the big Orgoth guy and we don't like spells. But again, very small change. Like Oriax, if we just change that to Sacred Ward, so he can at least cast spells on himself if he needs to. We don't know what his spell list is going to be, mainly because leading to the second one, paired with Lilith, the new Lilith, Spell Rack 1 was a very rough pill to swallow.
Yeah,
But with that being said, that spell list for this guy who's not really a spell slinger is amazing. Having access to Hunter's Mark with increase in efficiency, threat range extension, and it is spell slavable because we have
yeah,
Karavnik is amazing. Also, our arc nodes are very good for their points, so I don't feel bad throwing up an arc node just to try a Hunter's Mark. If
yep,
it works, then we go. It's a go turn. But when we're talking about he does absolutely nothing defensively, it puts the army in a very awkward spot because I feel like he is the definition of Harusk-less Sea Raiders,
yeah,
where we're playing very similar models, but they are dying in droves. And with his feat, Horn of Woe, I feel like, again, an exceptionally unique ability in the
hmm,
faction. Outside of Mulgrith, we don't really remove tough really well. So having that in a control area, amazing, flavorful. Unfortunately, the revive mechanic is really awkward. And 2 years ago, when we had something like a solo objective, this was
hmm.
money. This was
Oh, I
great.
see.
I'm going to bring
Okay,
back Vanek and score that point.
that's great.
But now, with solos being the most pound for pound value out of the revive, it's lost a lot of
Yeah,
its luster. So realistically, I would like to see the feat change somehow. I like the removal of tough and I'll remove from play. That's
sure.
great. I really enjoy the aggression, but I would like to see something to his feat added to keep that aggression going. Also, let's be honest, people. Butcher needs to be a weapon master. He's the guy.
Yes,
He's
yes.
the guy. This crit decap is really cool and all, but like I understand it's not Lola, but the same arm is swinging it.
Right, right. Butcher is a weapon master, right? He is just simply
Yeah.
defined as that. Yeah, he needs weapon master back. And then on the feat, the other thing that I dislike about feats like this, it's the same thing for Morton Abra. You put these models back, and then they have to sit there for a turn.
Yep.
Um, and it's so slow. Like your ability
Yes.
to, like you said, he's the butcher, right? He's to be played aggressively. And when you have a
Hmm.
feat, granted the no tough, no damage removed is sort of an aggressive component, but the
Yeah.
bringing models back just so they can sit around for a turn, that's not aggressive.
Maybe looking at the same models that killed them.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, getting him Sacred Ward and then a little more aggressive with Weapon Master.
Yeah.
That feels like a very good place for him to be. Sabrith. You know, as I look at the casters just on paper, Sabrith is absolutely my favorite. I picked up Orgoth as a second
Insane.
army. And I don't understand why he's not better. Like, why are his win rates not better? So tell me about Sabrith.
So, like you need a PhD to play her.
Okay.
So a
Okay.
lot of times, not that long ago, when Perdition was just an advance and it wasn't an advance directly towards the closest model, it was much more flexible, much more freeform. But now you really need to be on point with all of your planning. So one of the biggest mistakes that I saw a lot of people make is you run a really big battle group, and let's say that the models are going to be behind the woods. If you have less than an inch between your two battle group models, when you make those partition moves, the percentages of times where you are just going to bump your other cohort model and ruin the entire plan,
I
and
see.
that's the game. So you almost have to like reprogram your brain to play with Sabrith. Now, her spell list is bonkers.
So good.
Fog of War, Perdition, and Crippling Grasp.
Yeah.
And then we talk about that amazing spell rack. But to your point, I think the thing that jumps out the most is that feat. That feat is an insane amount of focus in a turn.
Yes.
When you figure just the spells on her list is 8 focus,
Yeah.
just right off the rip, and you haven't even picked 3 extra spells.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting as you level up with the caster and you're picking different spells for different matchups that more times than not you took two, like Hex Blast was a really big one for her. It was just the fact that it is free whenever we are going to engage, you're
Yeah.
not going to have your buff unless
Right.
you're like Umbre or something like that. So with that in mind, Fog of War didn't really come up too much, but mainly it's because of the big change that I would recommend is her control area. The control area 12 comes up almost every game.
I see.
So instead of a really big spell that causes them to die, it's the control area. So I want to play this really big battle group. I want to shoot these missiles out 17 inches or some crazy number with red line and all this stuff. And then the next turn, if I want them to stay in my control area, I have to be in a terrifying position.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Okay.
if I don't, then my opponent knows that they're not that Warjack isn't going to get focused next turn, and they can just ignore it, like
Yeah.
whatever. So it's something that's the Field Marshal Overtake, amazing.
Yeah.
Their stats, amazing. 15, 16, like caster, like an actual like mage like caster,
Mhm.
fantastic. They can get work done.
Yeah.
Their weapons are a very reasonable POW.
Yeah.
14, like we think about other ones that are like 12, maybe a 13. She walks up with 2 14s overtaking through a unit at 7, like
Yeah.
very scary. I just think more times than not, that 12 bites them in the butt.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So I think that Sabrith is, I cannot recommend playing this caster enough. I think they are a blast when the gears finally start to turn. But I will say that the control range and what spells they end up with is going to be such a big factor
Yeah.
as to how they will look overall.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so we'll have to see what the spells are in January,
Mhm.
presuming that Sabrith keeps these 3 and so has a
Correct.
very
Those might
solid
even be
base.
on the chopping block.
We'll add to it and then hopefully control 14. Warjacks, let's skip Azdarak. I feel like
Yeah.
he's already probably post changes. I feel
Yep.
like he is a 2026 model.
Mhm.
So let's actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump straight into your Tyrant because
Oh
this is the
boy.
one that needs the most, right?
Yes. So, don't get me wrong, Match 7 is very good. Fortunately, I'm finding more and more as I look at factions in Mark IV, if you are looking at factions that are doing exceptionally well, typically it is on the foundation that their warjacks are solid. So we take your faction Dusk, for example, or House Callus. Getting something like the Phantasm was such a breath of fresh air because the warjacks were so lacking. And now you have this actual brick that you can walk up and smack people with, so they
Yes.
have to respect you. And the problem is that the tyrant is the most disrespected warjack in the game. When we're
Having a
talking about,
top
I'm
end
sorry, go ahead.
cost of 20 is
20,
bananas.
20. So we have 12-point malefactors running around, and these guys can be 20. So, and that's kind of where I'm getting at. So, like, we talk about typically the 11, right?
Yeah.
So, the 11 sounds like a very reasonable price tag for a heavy, but we look at what we get for that 11. That's going to be a relentless charge head with a POW 12.
Yep.
Relentless charge, very good rule. I'm fine with
Sure.
that. It comes with an attack.
Yeah.
Cool. Everybody loves
Great.
a third attack. Then we scroll down again and it comes with a harpoon. And I'm like, okay, there are some times that I want the harpoon, but we live in a range reduction shield guard meta with a
Yep.
range 10 skewer. So all I'm really getting out of it is I'm going to kill one guardian that you're going to get a white off of, and then I get a POW 14 attack.
Yep.
Like, okay, that's fine. He can still be a utility heavy. And then we come down and it's the claw. So I get a 1 range 2 attack at a POW 14 on a speed 5 11 19 warjack
Yeah.
for those 11 points. And when we look at the upside of this, very typically it was a flail, claw, relentless charge tyrant. And that was 13 points. The flail's a
Okay.
very good weapon. I don't know why it's 8 points. Seems a little excessive. Thresher is cool, especially because, like we just talked about, the other attacks don't really matter. So I guess I'll take a couple extra POW 18s.
Yeah.
Chain weapon is becoming more prevalent as shields keep getting thrown on things like the Railless Interceptor at the time. And it is baseline magical, which is randomly cool. I think that's one of the Sea Raiders' biggest strengths is just the absolute abundance of random magical weapons.
Okay.
Where they lose me a little bit is all of the guns. If you are making a ranged tyrant, unfortunately, the only really good melee weapon is that scything flail.
Right.
So when we're talking about if I am making a ranged one, the Belcher is an expensive AoE that is
Yeah.
okay. Again, range 12.
Yeah. Not
The
great.
harpoon, like we talked about, isn't really that effective. And the
Mhm.
shredder in concept is a very cool weapon. It's a powerful attack. It's a really high POW, really good range. Good God, is it 8 points?
Yeah, that's a lot. And you're rat 5, not whereas you're mat 7, you are rat 5, right? So
Correct. So if we're trying to throw together this ramshackled Frankenstein for as affordable as possible, even if I wanted just a shredder, typically we need to take the hunter head because otherwise rat 5 is even worse.
Yep.
So that's 3 points. 8 points for the shredder is 11, and
Yep.
claw for 3
For
more. So
14.
minimum 14 points for one shot
Yeah.
is pretty expensive. So what I would like to see is maybe a decrease to the cannon shield cost. I feel like 6 points, because what I would like to see is maybe a 14-point flail shield relentless charge head.
Yeah.
So at least I have this kind of bulky guy, because as we're going to get to a little bit later, they're all competing with the Garlgast.
Yeah.
What I would love to see is if I take 2 melee tyrants, they will cost about the same as a Garlgast. So I can make
Makes
the
sense.
choice on whether I want those rockets, those sprays, those whatever the Garlgast brings, instead of 2 individual models that can go into different areas of the table. But unfortunately, I don't think that the Ripper is very attractive as a weapon. I think the range 1 is really unfortunate just because the threat range is already really bad.
Yep.
And the quad bolt thrower, I think, is a really cool weapon. I think it's very interesting. Unfortunately, again, it makes this guy so incredibly expensive.
Yeah, it's good for probably 6 points, not 7.
Yeah. So I would like to see a lot of the costs come down across the board. We didn't even talk about the heads because they are so incredibly expensive for what they do. 5 points for I'm never going to take that. I'm just
Yeah,
never.
no.
So the overtake head for 3 is actually pretty common. But
Sure.
unfortunately, like I said, I'm trying to look for where the steal is with this guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to break the bank for overtake. I'd rather just take him with Sabras and give him overtake.
It almost feels like the Arcane Vortex head needs to come down 1. It feels like every right arm could come down 1.
Mhm.
And then over here, your shield cannon goes to 5, your quad bolt thrower goes to 6, and your ripper goes to 4.
Yep.
And then effectively, you've reduced the cost of the entire chassis by 1 to 2 points overall, maybe 3
Yep.
points if you're taking the Arcane Vortex head, but it starts to give you legitimate options.
And that's something that they said, I believe, in the keynote, is that they wanted to increase options. So I think that overall hyper aggressive is a cool rule. It's
Sure.
flavorful again. I am shocked that something called a tyrant in Sea Raiders is not just aggressive.
Yeah.
With the jackal being aggressive, it's a little weird that the heavy just calmed down.
Okay, so let's go to your light, which I know you
Okay,
like.
man, do I?
Yeah.
So it was something really interesting. If you look at lists throughout the year with Sea Raiders, the number of jackals only reduced. So there were a lot of players that did very well that were only playing 1 or 2, and that was it.
Okay.
Good golly, do I love these little guys. They are just 5 to 6 points, a little ball of stats, and they are aggressive, so they're efficient,
Yep.
and they take 1 focus really well for power up and just get to do some really nasty stuff. And something that doesn't really come up very often is the claw. So it gives the jackal gladiator, and this actually really helps with power attacks, the slams,
Oh.
all sorts of different things. And so +2 on power attack damage rolls and on collateral damage rolls. So he gets to kind of do things out of his weight class that are really cool. I think that all of the melee options at
Yep.
some point throughout the year, I gave them a try.
Okay.
So I really like the mace. It is cheap. It is a really awesome suite of abilities and a
Mhm.
really sweet spot for the POW at 14. He's a
Yeah.
light. He shouldn't really be blowing up the moon with every attack,
Yeah.
but he is a scenario monster. So when he charges in, if you randomly roll doubles, you get the crit dispel. That's
Sure.
great. It's not so great for Sabras when I have crit dispelled my crippling grasp a couple times,
Oh,
but
yeah. Oops.
we we won't go there. So, but the beatback comes up a lot of games in an event, and I understand that the 1-inch range is a little scary, but that's why it's the cheapest option. When we go to the pole arm, that allows you to really push that threat limit of like your butchers, your Sabriths, just that extra inch to get to that 15, 16 marker to
Yeah.
become the person doing the alpha. But unfortunately, because of the POW 13, brutal charge, really nice. POW 15, blam, 1 attack, but he peters out really fast.
Yeah.
13 is the diminishing returns are kind of crazy, where now there isn't really much he can kill. So now you're buying and boosting damage, and that's just the 2 attacks.
Yeah.
Now, for all the gushing I'm doing about the melee options, the ranged options are miserable.
Okay.
These things, the flamethrower, again, in concept, really cool. Spray 8, well, it
Yeah.
checks the boxes, but what's that rat stat?
5 again.
Boom. So
Yeah.
now I'm sure there is some crazy Sea Raiders player that's like a huge Kishtar main and is just blowing up the world with all these guns that I'm about to talk garbage about. But you are giving up some sort of utility by taking these guns.
Yeah.
And so with the Hunter rifle, it's 5 points for this
I
thing.
know.
And crit brutal damage is so tempting to be like a really cool, like skirmishy model
Yep.
that you have to come and get me. Unfortunately, I like to use jackals as anti pieces, where
Uh-huh.
I'm going to put this on the subjective, come and get it. It's
Yeah.
going to take a little too much resources to kill. So if he's doing that and just going, bang, your turn, that's not really that scary, all in
Well,
all.
when you talk about your melee options, I
Hmm.
mean, never mind the heads for a second. That
Yeah.
mace seems pretty valuable at 3 points,
Hmm.
especially with beatback as a control piece. And then,
Right.
like you said, the 1 point Clawed Fist giving you Gladiator seems very well worth it.
Hmm.
So when you're taking your arms you're taking minimum arms, right? So
Right.
say you took the arc
Hmm.
node head, you're only at
Right.
6 points. You're at a
Right.
6 point arc node and you have actually reasonable arms for melee.
Hmm.
And you've got a 12, 17, 26 point aggressive jack that you can just throw places for 6 points. Like,
Correct.
why do you need more than
So
that?
so this is what I was getting at, where I think that the Jackal for the Sea Raiders is one of the shining examples of why to play the faction,
Yeah,
which is
okay.
why I was so boggled that other Sea Raiders players weren't playing 3 or 4 of them.
I see.
So when it's the going wide instead of going tall, and
Mhm.
it's not very flashy, but it is efficient.
Y-
I think this is a really great light jack, and I'm going to be honest, I'm okay with the guns not being very good. Not everything needs to be great. We're a
Yeah.
melee focused faction.
How about Moloch?
I have never played Moloch in my life. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. So it's a lot of points
Yeah.
for another. I already don't like the tyrant,
Yeah.
so and it's really unfortunate because I feel like character jacks in Mark IV are really hit or miss.
Yeah.
They're either played in every list like Israfil was until they got nerfed,
Yep.
or you have things like Plugger that are amazing,
Yeah.
and then you come
Deuce
back
all
over
over the place. Yeah.
exactly, and then you come back to Moloch, and I just don't particularly understand what his place in the game is. So he has a bundle of really cool rules, but they all revolve around souls. And once again, can't collect friendly souls, so maybe that's just another check in the box of that would make him playable.
Yep.
But I would tell you again, overnight, if you could collect souls, I would try it.
Yeah, it feels like either collecting friendly souls or, I mean, look at old Umbry, right? They just churn out
Mhm.
corpses by themselves. They don't need the
Correct.
opponent to do anything. They
Right.
bring their own corpse economy.
Mhm.
Heck, they kill one model and they find D3 corpses in one guy somehow. And
They were just carrying him around on their back, I
yeah,
guess.
and then the bird gives away extra corpses also, right?
Right.
Like so collecting your own souls or just generating souls out of thin air like they do corpses
Wow, I didn't think about that. That would be
feels like
really
a
cool if somebody like Alexis had
yeah,
a soul version of I Found One.
yeah.
Hmm.
Like
He's
why
literally
couldn't
ripping
you
the soul out of somebody.
yeah, why couldn't you find a soul floating around if you could just randomly find a corpse, right? I mean, that
Yeah,
corpse had a soul and hopefully they're so close together.
yeah, that would be really cool, actually. So I just yeah, more times than not, he's just not worth his points for just because he takes too much investment. And again, for a cheaper cost, I could get that flail claw relentless charge tyrant.
Yeah, okay. Garlgast.
My baby potato boy. God, I love this model. So he does exactly what I need the tyrants to do and more. So he is that hold the front line, kind of protect everybody through the threat of what he can do. So the sheer fact that a tyrant is speed 5 and this guy is speed 6 should be argument enough. But the rocket pods are amazing. The eyeless sight comes up basically every game. Arcing fire is a very unique rule on him that comes up pretty frequently. Rat 5 is rough, but again, at the end of the day, more times than not, you are boosting
Yeah,
anyways.
yeah,
So it's usually boost, I'll reload, and I'll boost.
yeah,
So
okay.
AoE 3 comes up quite frequently. The POW 15 is really nice. And then we go to the options. There was a very, very heated debate throughout the year between Sea Raiders players on if you're in the Frother or the Spider camp.
Okay.
So I started the year in the Spider camp. I thought that it was a very magnificently eloquent way to cut down that awful threat range game that we talked about
Yeah,
because when my opponent sort of tiptoes objectives, you walk up, you drag them in, you shadow bind them, boom, either he kills it or the things behind him kill it. Unfortunately, like we mentioned with the harpoon, we entered a range reduction shield guard meta, and not only when you're rat 5, you could only roll one shot, which was very
yeah,
spooky,
yeah,
and then you could just miss A, and B, there's usually 2 to 3 shield guards around
yeah, yeah.
important targets. And this is
Fair.
even before we talk about the terrain, the anything in between line of sight blocking stuff. So realistically, it's only 1 point, and you talk about the frother, and we see what did we give up to get that drag,
Yeah,
and is 5 POW because the spider head has a much lower POW. The crushing jaws being POW 23
yeah,
became extrememely relevant when we're talking about the trichimerics and big models that we have to kill because we don't want to spend more points on the better fists.
yeah,
Where when we could just take the cheaper head,
yeah,
picking up snacking
yeah.
is a gigantic thing. Not really the healing part, just because he has so many boxes, but the
Mhm.
remove from play comes up quite often.
Yeah,
And the pain maddened. Looking at my opponent, making him a shield guard and saying, come at me, make me
yeah.
threat 13.
It's pretty good.
It's a really
And
big
it's the
deal.
cheaper head. To your
Correct.
point.
It's always nice to be cheaper.
Yeah.
So, one of the biggest stumbles on this model, I think, is on the forearms.
Okay.
I don't really ever have a reason to bring the bile jet.
Okay.
It is a shorter range than the Infernus cannon. It is a higher POW and it causes corrosion.
Yep.
But more times than not, for continuous effects, fire is going to be a POW 12. It could do more. Corrosion's
Yeah.
only ever going to do one.
Yep.
Also, to be the cheaper option, the longer range and have access to a rule like Choking Ash
Hmm.
is just a no-brainer. I don't think I've ever seen a Bile-Jet on the table.
Yeah.
Choking Ash being a wonderful control piece that I hope we see a little bit more of, maybe, like maybe adding it to the Belcher for the Tyrant or something like that.
I
I
see.
just
Yeah.
think that it is a remarkable effect that we don't see much in the game right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And again,
On the fists, because the left and right are the same for options, we're
yep.
talking the Rending Claws and the Demolisher Fist. I understand why the Demolisher Fist is 8 points. You know, having a base POW 20 is a powerful thing.
Yep.
However, if I'm already going to be bringing a POW 23 with the Frother, why would I pay extra points for one POW higher?
Yep.
Siege Weapon comes up, but realistically, Siege Weapon is only going to add about 3 to 3.5 per attack, and I'm already getting that with the Crushing Jaw.
With the 23. Yeah.
Correct. And Crit Knockdown is cool. What is the name of that rule that the Gorger just got? Is it Rolling Earth?
He has auto knockdown.
Yeah,
with-
Earthshaker. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
If I'm going to pay extra, I would like to maybe see something like Earthshaker on the Demolisher Fist so that I can facilitate my other models for hitting, but I don't want to boost. So Crit Knockdown is just kind of a null, where it's kind of the same with Rending Claws, where Crit Grievous is like, oh, cool, that happened, but I'm not really going for it.
Yeah.
So once again, it boils down to this is the cheaper option.
So this guy kind of sells himself as you take the cheapest option in each one and actually end up kind of better off, right? So this guy's
Yep.
always 26 points. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so does he need any touch-ups, or is he's probably balanced the way he is? It's that other things need to come up.
Yes, I think that I after his change in January, I think he's in a really cool spot.
Okay, Ravener.
So the Ravener, honestly, I think it's a lot of the same of what we just said about the Garlgast. I think he is amazingly point costed. Threat range is great. Spell Ward makes sense here. I
Yep.
don't want this to be buffed. I don't think it would be good for the game. And he achieves what we want out of a melee only berserking kind of infantry clearing heavy.
Yeah.
But overall, I think they knocked it out of the park with where he is right now.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into your Grottons then.
So Grottons had quite the fall from grace. They were in two were in every list last year.
Okay.
And then this year they have disappeared entirely, this model in particular. I think that the rules on his card currently look very attractive
Mm-hmm.
until he just doesn't have access to Pathfinder.
Oh, yeah.
And a speed 5 model with no Pathfinder is just walking in mud the entire time.
Yeah.
Blade Shield's very cute. So he's a 14-17 to guns. A lot of boxes. Spell Ward is nice. But losing Thresher was a really big deal
Okay.
in the January update. And I think for 5 points, that is exceptionally expensive
Yeah.
when they also can only really score flags now.
Yeah.
Sea Raiders was a huge winner when it came to the solo objective last year, just
Okay.
because we had these crazy survivable solos.
Yeah.
But with that going away, him being expensive, no path. So maybe like Relentless Charge would be really cool.
Yeah.
Seeing some kind of access to Pathfinder would be nice. But honestly, maybe make him speed 6. The speed 5 is really rough. The being able to stop your own berserk on the sidestep is nice. All of these things are really nice. He's mat 7. I mean, you can't get mad at a Weapon Master berserk.
Sure.
He's not having the Halexis problem where he doesn't have access to get by multiple attacks. But I understood that I'm going to charge something Thresher and then sidestep off of that and keep the berserk going was a little excessive. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that needs to be looked at. But honestly, it's crazy for me to say this. I think you could drop a point and be 4 points. I think it falls into that combat solo area of the game where I think it's fascinating. Because, coming from Mark II, like you, combat solos were the name of the game. It was like, how efficient can this model be for quality of attack equal to number of points?
Yep.
And that's kind of disappeared because, like, you just got Silena, and there's like an argument of whether you should play her or not. Bonkers set of rules, and we're like,
She's so
this is a
good.
bonkers set of rules, right?
Yeah.
So possibly drop down to 4 points, and maybe that would be my biggest change.
At
And
4 points, he starts
realistic.
to compete here, right? You have a
Yes.
Mat 8, POW 14,
Mhm.
Weapon Master with Berserk. You don't have the 15-15 stat line is great, right? The 15 defense
Great.
is great. You only have 8 boxes,
Mhm.
but being defense 15 is phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
And you don't have overtake, sidestep. Sorry, you don't
Correct.
have sidestep,
Yep.
but it, I don't know. Yeah, I could see him being 4, or I can see keep him at 5 and give him the speed, give him the Pathfinder, let him get there.
Yep. So realistically, it's funny enough, that is effectively what they took away from him was the speed
Oh,
in
okay.
January. So
Okay.
he was speed 6, and that felt right. I have attempted many games to play with 4 Groton on the table again, and it has just been a huge disappointment every time.
Okay.
So the keeper, on the other hand, that to me, he is the more bulky, more defensive minded Groton. It
Yeah.
makes sense to me that he went to speed 5. It was a little weird that he was really fast in that huge set of armor with the shield and the pole arm.
Yeah.
He saw quite a bit of play this year, not particularly from me, but with Shield Guard baseline, it's fantastic because the Forge Master is the only other way that we really get Shield Guard. So him not only having Primal Rage, that kind of, again, I feel like the identity of Sea Raiders is tit for tat.
Yep.
It's a mix of Menoth and Scorn, the classic ideologies. So he has the Denial and Spell Ward, and he has the I'll get back at you with Primal Rage to
Yep.
kind of mitigate that threat range deficit. 12-18 with the 2 shields on a
Mhm.
solo
Yeah.
is insane.
With
He
14
has
boxes.
so many boxes.
Yeah.
Number of times somebody will take a boosted PAL 15 and he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
It is crazy. And then you do have the flavorful fun part of he randomly gets a crit decap, and then that's just bonkers, and it always tells a story. So whereas the champion completely fell off a cliff, I think the keeper is right where he needs to be.
Okay. Well, like you said before, the champion did come down in speed, but he also lost Thresher, and it sounds like they nicked him twice, right?
Yeah, there's
So
a double tap.
speed needs to go back up, leave Thresher off, starts to feel a little bit better. Again, maybe it's not speed, maybe it's Pathfinder.
Something. Yeah.
Um, Alexis, I can't imagine his soul stuff ever really happens again because the soul economy is terrible.
Correct.
Is he okay for Mat 8, 15-15, top 14 Weapon Master?
I did not see him on the board this year
Yeah, okay.
across all Sea Raiders players for the most part. I didn't analyze every list. So I want to sound like a broken record here, but it's just the soul economy. If he had, like we said, something like I found one for souls, I think that would give him an amazing place to be. It's very common in Sea Raiders that your support are weapon masters. So it's this kind of thing where I would love if instead of he is just the guy that's supposed to missile in and get a bunch of souls and kind of stand there, because Ghost Shield is a thing. So he can become a 15-18, which is super cool. It's the payoff. So the payoff used to be you have a solo objective. He goes in, he clears it out with Berserk and all that nonsense, and then stands there, scores it, and says, I'm a 15-18. That's a really strong concept. But losing the ability to buy attacks and now he can boost attacks, I feel only pushes him more. I would be fine if he jumped to 5 points and he
Okay.
got something for his soul economy.
Okay.
I think that would be the biggest change.
Yeah, that's our theme so far. And that feels
Yeah.
right because it's an entire mechanic that your army has
Mhm.
that you're just bad at. Or the game is
Yep.
bad at. Let me say that. You're good at
Sure.
collecting enemy souls. It's just that there's only so many of them, and
Right.
it's just a tough spot for the game to be in.
Absolutely.
Reaver Commander, perfect as is.
Oh my God, this is the perfect model. The number of times that people have looked at me and said, that's 3 points.
Yeah.
This thing has multiple attacks, a weapon master, a very good gun. The shield is perfectly fine for what it is. This is a 13-17 that can randomly give something set defense, which again fits the I'm going to take the alpha. It gives precision strike so we can run through it. We have a ton of medium bases.
Yeah.
So this is exceptionally helpful. And combat coordination is chef kiss. I
Yeah.
would never change anything about this model.
Okay. So we like the commander.
Absolutely.
But he also doesn't feel like he needs to be touched. Like he feels very solid, but certainly not oppressive in any way. He's
I
just,
feel like it is a faction identifying solo.
yeah.
Where, like,
He's
again, it's
your
a selling
utility.
point to play the army.
Yep. All right. This is my favorite model in your range. Tell me
Woo!
about Siege Tarrasque.
He is so cool. So this was a model. It was him and the girl guest this January. They got a really big glow up.
Okay.
The Siege Terrast, for the longest time, he has gone through many permutations where how he got the tokens, the rage tokens,
Okay.
and the different ways in which he could use them. So currently, it is when he is damaged by an enemy attack or he destroys an enemy model, he gets a rage token. This is exceptionally important
Okay.
because it incentivizes the aggressive playstyle of the Siege Terrask.
Yeah.
Yes, he does have a drag. It is a very big deal. One of the
Yep.
reasons why you bring him, but it is not his entire identity. Going up one POW and one mat per rage token that he has with the 3 initials is very
Sorry,
useful.
that's in here. Yeah.
So you don't need Carnage for him to operate.
Yep.
And I think that this model is aggressively underplayed
Okay.
for what he does. A lot of times when you look at him initially, you're like, okay, he brings Mortal Fear in Rage
Yeah.
Howler
Yeah.
and he brings a drag. But really, he has 3 initials, he has Overtake, and all of this utility on top of that.
Yeah.
So he gets a lot of work done for those 9 points. When you figure that kind of point range, you're
Mhm.
talking about like a light warjack. You're talking about a dude that walks up, has like a POW 12, a POW 10, and maybe a cool head. And that's, that's it. Whereas he's coming up 16, 16, 16, or
Yeah.
it's going to be 16, 17, 18, depending
Yeah.
on what you're hitting. And then he throws up Mortal Fear. Then he
Yep.
drags something and brings it over here. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, I think they've really knocked it out of the park with where he is currently. I am a little concerned for that point cost. If
Mm.
the reduce in lethality hits him and brings him to mat 6, I
Yeah.
think it's
Okay.
really important that he stays at mat 7 because there's no access to really boosting, and
Mhm.
all of the weapon profiles are very good where they are.
Yeah. Okay.
So any reduction to that, I think, might actually just put him on the shelf,
Yeah, because he
unfortunately.
needs that first hit to start the chain of getting +1 to mat and
Mhm.
damage. And if you break his chain, it's a compounding effect on him. Your character.
So Vanek is a fantastic utility solo
Okay.
for 4 points. Having the ability to bring Hex Blast when
Yes.
it was on our rack, granted it's not boostable,
Yeah.
but being able to throw that out on like a big target
He's a
is
6.
fantastic.
Yep.
And at 6, it will hit. It's not guaranteed, but
Yeah.
this is where that kind of synergies come in instead of scornergy, where the Reaver commander can give her a reroll. And
Okay.
now that 6 really isn't that bad, even before her Rusk Fate Blast, but we won't talk about that. But so Grim Returns is a very really interesting, unique trait that she brings to the table,
Mhm.
where we have these medium base, hard to kill models, but dice happen. Sometimes the medium range guns kind of knock somebody down or do whatever, not remove them, but take them off the table.
Yeah.
And being able to just bring them back, make that annoying because the Nashers and Axers have ways of healing themselves. So all we need is to put them back on the table. They have to forfeit movement or action because of the general changes to reviving in the game, but it's they're good enough stats where it should take a reasonable attack to remove them again, let alone another tough check.
Yeah.
Sigil of Power, I think, doesn't really have much effect. It's mainly just for barragers to give them ranged
Mhm.
magical weapons. Almost all of our melee weapons are magical anyways,
Yeah.
so it's a little bit of a strange one, but Warwitch Coven Vet Leader never really comes up.
Yeah. Okay. And then you have decent
So
durability. Actually,
realistically,
you have really good durability here at 15,
very
17.
good durability.
Yeah.
I
Stealth.
For changes, I would like to see the vet leader Warwitch Coven
Yeah.
turn into she gives them something.
Okay.
I don't know what, but so we have like Kroll who hands out tough to Man of War within 10 or whatever the number is. But I would like her, even if it's a silly rule, just because the +1 to hit feels kind of flat.
Yeah.
And just give me another reason to not only take Warwitch Coven, but her as well.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And then Forge Master, absolutely
Yep.
necessary.
Yep, he is the first 2 points in almost every list if the girl guest is going to be there.
Yep.
Exorcism was a gigantic change to this faction. It actually put the
Uh-huh.
girl guest back on the map. And he is just 2 points of absolute utility, being able to make something a shield guard, giving a Pathfinder in tune-up
Yep.
is all I have used all these abilities multiple times. A D6 repair is janky, just because you're kind of pulling a slot machine,
Yeah.
whereas we see a lot of D3+1 or D3+2. But yeah, the biggest surprise everyone ever has about this guy is his armor piercing charge. He is mat 5, but when you have a 2-point model randomly do 13 points to a light, like it can swing a game. So I think that that is a really cool touch. But yeah, overall, I don't think he really needs any changes.
Yeah. No, and 2 points, he's excellent.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
just,
So now we get into your units. Is this the
Mhm.
best part of your faction?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I would say so.
Assault Reavers?
So we can kind of talk about the single wound infantry as a whole.
Okay.
I
Sure.
do believe that we learned that they are going to be gaining last word.
Okay.
So this is going to be exceptionally interesting when we talk about that tit for tat playstyle that I keep repeating.
Remind me
So
last word. They move and
last
attack
word's
when
going
they
to be when
die?
they die, they can
Yeah.
make a move and an attack
Okay.
before they die. So this creates a really interesting concept with the assault reavers in particular because they have prey. So
Oh, I see.
instead of being like, I'm going to prey the unit that I want to kill, I can now, with last word, prey the unit that is going to alpha me.
Mm,
And now I get that extra pow when I stab back. Would you like me to just stick with assault reavers or keep talking about the single wound infantry as a whole?
do both.
Okay. So with the strike reavers, I think it is kind of insane that the people that are literally their entire identity is assaulting and charging in do not have Pathfinder.
Okay.
They're the only ones. All of these reavers are wearing the same boots, but for some reason,
Pathfinders.
those boots are better.
Okay. I hear you. Okay.
Not to mention the strike reavers being the most expensive of all of the reaver units.
And they don't have
Not
it.
having
Yeah.
Pathfinder is kind of crazy.
Okay.
But one of the things that I would adore, because we're talking about wish list things, is I would love if all Reavers just had prey.
Ah, okay. And so it just became kind of a mechanically thing
Correct.
that's shared between all of
So
them.
we look at the 3 different units in the assault, the skirmish, and the strike. And if they all had prey, I think that would make them a little bit more interesting
Okay.
because it is, we hit harder, but we do it in different modes. So the skirmishers, they get the 2 attacks
Yep.
and they're very good. They're blessed. Again, I think a criminally underplayed unit for 6 points, but I think they are outshined because I can pay 2 more points and get axers.
I see.
So I think prey would kind of make them more unique and stand out more.
Okay.
And when we're talking about the assault reavers, we already have access to ranged prey in the harpoon.
Yep.
And I think that having the strike be able to bring that in a pistol form
Uh-huh.
would be also exceptionally interesting because we don't actually have a lot of infantry clearing outside of axe to face.
Okay.
The harpoon on the assault reavers is range 8.
Yep.
So in a range reduction shield guard meta, it's basically range 5. That's basically a melee weapon at that point.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the strike reavers, they bring that very reasonable range to their pistol, and I think that that would be very interesting.
And you're also going to lose because you're losing the spell rack, right? You're going to lose access to Carnage on every caster ever. And
Correct.
so, and we already know that mats are going to go down across the board, right? Mats and
Right.
rats. So not only are you losing Carnage on every list, you're also going to lose a mat in every list.
Mhm.
So all of these units would normally be mat 8, and now
Yes.
you're maybe going to be mat 5. I don't know. We'll see where it shakes out.
Right.
So giving them prey gives you a chance to get some of that back. That makes sense.
And there's a lot of counterplay too, because like I have to announce it, like that
Yeah.
is my prey, and then
Yeah.
so you can position accordingly. And so that's why I always find it very reasonable that that as a concept.
How about your Nashers?
These guys are rad.
Yeah.
So I love so taking a step back, just looking at the faction. This is probably my favorite looking unit in the faction.
Okay.
They look like they just came out of Doom, and they are my hammer. They're one of the huge playing differences between me and a lot of Sea Raiders players is
Okay.
that these are my babies. I
Okay.
usually kept them very safe until
Mhm.
they hop out, whereas other people played them like berserkers and just kind of ran them forward.
Okay.
I've just found that they kind of die in droves, but I think this is a wonderful design of a slightly expensive unit with okay defensive stats, reasonably bad, honestly. Okay, pretty bad threat range, but
Yep.
those weapons
Yeah.
are awesome.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I would like to see, if possible, is everything stay the same. They just get blessed on the
Okay.
fell weapons.
Okay.
They're already magical. We already have blessed in the Reaper
I would
skirmishers.
say then they would match the skirmishers. Yeah.
Right. And I think that that would be very cool just because, again, when they finally get there, if they do, I really want them to just do the job.
Yeah. I think it's worth noting that your expertise as a Sea Raiders player, you talk about other players push these guys forward, and for you, they're a second line. We
Mhm.
talked earlier, I'm getting away from wish listing, but your methodology seems to be that you're willing to put a few jackals forward, right? As a cheap
Yeah.
6 point durable unit,
Mhm.
and then you back those up with your Nashers, which hit a lot harder. And
Right.
that play style seems to have served you very, very well and made these
Mhm.
guys really shine.
Absolutely. So, and I think that it's one of those things where you pair the threat of the Garlgast space control, the scenario pressure the Jackals are putting on people,
Yep.
also alongside their buddies, the Axers. It caused people to move into uncomfortable positions where now the threat range game isn't that big a deal, and now
Yeah.
you're playing on my terms, where we're going to
Yep.
scrum in the middle. My stats are hopefully better than yours, and we just kind of duke it out.
Yep. So
These
do
guys are amazing.
yeah.
Last year, I only played one unit of them,
Okay.
and man, did I regret it. As I have gotten better with the faction, these guys' stock has only risen.
Okay.
They are at 12, 16, they are susceptible to guns.
Yeah.
But honestly, again, I think that these are perfectly point costed. The stats are fine, and I don't think that I would want anything to change.
Okay. How about your Harriers? They seem a little
This,
underplayed.
yeah. So stealth is not what it used to be.
Uh-huh.
And at 13, 16, when we're walking around with a boostable POW 10 blast,
Yeah.
the biggest prey to whatever soul god the Sea Raiders worship would be 8 boxes.
Okay.
I think that at 8 boxes, face off 6, it's going to take about 2 boosted POW 10s to kill one of these guys.
Huh.
And good golly, 10 points is real expensive for what these guys bring to the table.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that they are exceptionally cool and flavorful with the crit pitch and everything, but Sitting Vulture, really cool ability. But I just find that more times than not, they were needed Silence of Death to get anything done. And with that going away from the rack, I am exceptionally worried that
Yeah.
these guys just aren't going to see play.
They almost seem like they could be 9 points and 8 boxes and still be fine.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Forgive me, cat. Okay. Your last unit, well, second last unit, your
Yep.
barragers. Do they need any touch ups?
So not particularly. Honestly,
Okay.
12, 16 seem fine. They fit the all core 8 box tough. Rat 6 is cool. I'm glad they're not Rat 5, but we'll see
Yep.
come January if that drops to Rat
Yeah.
5. If it does, I think that it's a really hard argument to play them
Yeah.
if the Shield Guard meta kind of sticks around, just
Hmm.
because they already kind of fell off my list for another unit.
Yeah.
But they do bring an interesting concept in the guns, and yeah, we'll have to see. My wish would be to stay at Rat 6.
Your melee unit seems so solid that
Yeah,
and you've built a way to help engage through the lights, and so you
right.
don't need the guns as much because your melee game is sufficient. Warwitch Coven, just traditional utility unit. Any changes here?
Not particularly. I think the Empower is really interesting. I'm sorry, the Deathly Power giving Dark Shroud because it forces them to be in the action. So I don't like it when support units can just kind of sit in the deployment zone and still get their full ability.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they bring a lot to the table, honestly, for 4 points.
I do like the utility on them. You empower early game and then late game you have the
Hmm.
Dark Shroud that you can put out there. I just think it makes them a really interesting unit. To your point, instead of, like in Dusk, my 4 point support unit, they just hide in the back the whole time. In Gravediggers, they have guns, and so late game they randomly shoot stuff. And so I think it's
Hmm.
kind of nice when there's that additional purpose to do a little something.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that kind of brings us to the end. Anything overall that you want to recap?
Overall, I think that kind of the things that we've been repeating this whole time is a soul economy.
Uh,
If you want that to be their faction identity, I'm
Yeah.
not saying they have to be as efficient at it as Umbre, which is
Sure.
possibly too efficient at that job, but
Yeah.
having access to some sort of way to give souls to things or gain souls would, I think, go a really long way. And I think right off the rip, I think if the Tyrant gained aggressive, we could see some very interesting changes. But realistically, I think that due to the limited nature of entries in Mark IV armies,
Yeah.
the you need to nail the battle group. I think everything else can just kind of work,
Yeah.
but so the fact that now I can take Azdarak for 21 points or a 20-point tyrant is, I think, should be a little telling on maybe those points need to come down quite a
Those are a
bit.
little bit different.
Yeah.
Um,
So
uh,
yeah, I'm really curious to see how the faction looks next year now that we have an 80 mil character competing with the Garlgast.
yeah,
So where, what's the reasoning behind doing either or? Is this better? Is this not? Does one of them invalidate the other?
sure.
I think it's going to be a really interesting thing to watch.
Yeah. Just back to your soul economy thing. Like
Mhm,
I know you said not as good as old Dunbury's corpse economy, but give him a little bit of a soul economy. I actually quite strongly feel that that should be the angle that they're taking. It gives them a unique role in the game, right? I mean,
mhm,
Ombre is your corpse economy faction, and that's what gives them some of their flavor and some of their depth, right? And so Sea Raiders, you're just kind of, you said it before, you're an army of potatoes, right? Like
mhm.
everybody threats 10 and you just kind of walk around and do stuff.
Yep.
And giving you an actual soul economy gives you depth of game and strategy and ways to turn different things on. And you're not just simply reliant on, well, thank God they're playing Shadowflame Shard and they actually have souls or trolls. And so I would love for the depth of the faction to be more substantial and robust. And I think just a small soul game is
Mhm.
a great way to do that. So
Yeah.
I'll keep my fingers
Um,
crossed for you.
so I think there's probably a huge focus on bringing those other casters up
Yep.
to the Harusk area, maybe not the
Yep.
same level.
Yep.
And I think that alone is going to drastically change the faction
Yeah.
because
Okay.
obviously that is where your list starts.
Yeah.
And I am exceptionally excited to see what SFG comes out with come
Yeah.
January.
All right. Well, awesome. Thanks for
Cool.
joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
I hope you enjoyed your intro.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
All right. Thanks, Dan. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later.